So the Los Angeles Lakers had an amazing offseason, and I wanted to talk about it. Frankly, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who's a bigger fan of this offseason than me, and honestly, lately, I think I've just become a Ron Pelinka stan, because basically every move this man has made in the last, calendar year has just been excellent, excellent work. And this is especially ironic considering just how many people were calling for his head early on into LeBron being in LA, specifically right after and having done the Russell Westbrook trade, which was entirely an understandable reason to call for somebody's job, to be fair. But he managed to turn that around and make the Lakers one of the deeper teams in the NBA, I think, through the trades that they made this year at the deadline, as well as some of the additions they made this postseason and free agency. Hello everyone, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. So first, I want to talk about their re-signings. The only thing that I'm not super thrilled about with what they did is in regards to D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo got about $16 million a year, I think is what it amounts to. Ultimately, that's not a crazy amount of money anymore, which is something I'm saying as a caveat for all the stuff in these videos, but I think it's worth bearing that in mind. The yesterday's price is not today's price, and that amount of money for him, it's fine, but he sucked in the playoffs versus Denver, man, and I just have never trusted D'Angelo Russell even a little bit. To me, when D'Angelo is good in the playoffs, that is a far more significant surprise than when he is bad. I remember having someone talk about man, LA got hoed in this series because D'Angelo played bad. If he played good like he usually does, I was like, dude, like he usually does? Most of the time he's been in a playoff setting or any kind of remotely intense basketball in the NBA, he's folded. Ironically known for being a clutch player, but I just don't know if that tracks today. He did hit a really clutch shot for LA after being traded for, so fair enough. But at least not in the postseason. In the postseason, the guy completely disappears. But the plus side of bringing him back, if he does not do very well, is you did get a really good backup point guard in Gabe Vincent. And I understand the value of D'Angelo Russell specifically in regards to having LeBron James do less because, yeah, is D'Lo the most exciting and super good shot creator in the world? No. Is he still probably the second best on the team creating on the perimeter after LeBron? I mean, sometimes Rui and especially Austin Reeves can outdo him in the creation department, but on a day-to-day basis, you trust D'Lo to create for himself and others at a semi-respectable efficiency. And that's just someone to do that while LeBron is chilling, because maybe if it's Gabe Vincent instead of D'Angelo Russell, LeBron has to try 5% harder just to make sure there's enough scoring going around. But with that said, I'm not a big fan of that one, but I am so much of a fan of everything else they've done that it more than offsets that. I only feel like he's maybe getting a few too many million. I also would have really liked to see them try and retain Mo Bamba, and they did not do that, which was honestly kind of confusing to me. Maybe their medical staff knows something that we do not, but he seemed like he was okay in the extremely limited amount of run that he got for them, and I still believe Mo Bamba can be quite a positive role player. Like, if he shoots league average from a three as a center and plays the defense that he already plays, that is a big positive role player. All that said, Austin Reeves and Rui got kind of cheap contracts, I'd say, all things considered, especially in the case of Austin Reeves, where I think he got $14 million a year annually, and that's just not what I expected. It might have been up to 16, but if you told me Austin Reeves, after the season that he just had being a young player in a competitive-ish market, I thought that he would get less money than D'Angelo Russell, especially after that playoff run. That is really surprising to me. So LA got an absolute steal there. Sucks for Austin. I mean, not that much. He still got, tens of millions of dollars a year. But much less than seemed like he would. So that means money saved by LA that they got to use elsewhere, obviously. And then I think even Rui, who got about 17 mil a year, fairly the same level of, like, I think both of them could have got 20, and instead combined they got 7 less. I don't want to do math. I even forgot what the hell I was doing math for. So yeah, bringing those guys back on cheap deals, excellent. And then now let's actually talk about the guys that are new, which is, of course, most notably Gabe Vincent from Miami, who was fresh off of being the starting point guard of a team that made its way to the NBA Finals. I have been a big fan of Gabe's for a little bit, a big fan / hater, just because he would always go off against my team. But I've always thought he was one of the more underrated guards in basketball, if a little inconsistent. And now in LA, he will have the opportunity to potentially, I think he could arguably earn that starting point guard spot, especially as a more level hand, while D'Angelo Russell could be like the more chaotic microwave sixth man type. But regardless, I think he provides more stability from that point guard position. Another guy that can create for himself and others a decent bit. This is a guy who averaged 16 points per game in a 7-game conference finals. So, someone who can put the ball in the basket, someone with a good pull-up. I really like his fit in LA off of that bench. I think he instantly becomes one of the best backup point guards in all of basketball, which is obviously nice to have. Then Taurean Prince, for as cheap as he was, man, that is a steal. We're talking about a guy who is a 38% three-point shooter on, not crazy, but good volume. And a guy who's also a long wing who plays good enough defense. Like, you can maybe look at his physical frame and find him to be a little bit disappointing defensively, but ultimately he's a positive who can hit his open threes. And sometimes he'll get a little overzealous creating for himself, but he can do it sparingly. And there's times where you need a guy who can do more than just catch and shoot the ball. So I think he will be a pivotal part of the rotation as the year goes along. Then what's interesting is these two prospects that they decided to invest in Cameron Reddish as well as Jackson Hayes. Both of these guys have had very weird NBA careers and haven't really had solid floor time consistently at any point. But Cam Reddish has shot 38% from three over large stretches of his career. He's already a plus defender. So, if he can just be a simple catch and shoot guy and just hit the open threes, that's a positive player right there. Low risk, high reward. And then same goes for Jackson. Seems to be just a guy who's really tall and can jump, so they made him a basketball player. But, maybe there is a world where that raw athleticism can be molded into something resembling a pretty damn good backup center, because that is the one hole that I would say they have. I do think it's possible they sign Christian Wood. And if they sign Christian Wood, man, this is one of the best offseasons there's ever been, in my opinion. I think Christian Wood in LA would probably finally just be the circumstances that acknowledges, okay, man, this is an offensive guy. We'll put him off of the bench to score points. I think as much of a fan as I am of the idea of star player Christian Wood, it seems like he shouldn't have stepped out of the this guy could probably be sixth man of the year territory. I think that's where he belongs. And hopefully he does find that place. And it'd be really cool if it was with the Lakers. Him playing alongside AD would be a interesting character arc, all things considered. But yeah, I was a big fan of LA's offseason, and I wanted to talk about it. This team is going to be really interesting going into next year. I'm actually going to make a main channel video on it, specifically focusing on the fact that I think this is a good chance this is LeBron's last year in LA, which is pretty big and affects a lot of what happens in the near future. So yeah, that will be discussed there. Look out for it, but shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.